off in our last video, and that is working on the horns, and we'll move on to the rest of the head here shortly. Same thing for the first initial point. Scale that up. And now with that selected, I'm going to go ahead and add rotation because I want it to kind of match the contours here. I can click on this one and the gizmo will still stay active. I can rotate that as well. I'll click on this one, adjust the rotation values as well. Now, if I'm not perfectly happy with the shape once I hit apply, I can always use the move tool or the pose tool to make some further tweaks. Okay, so I'm going to right click, or I can hit the escape key to undo the gizmo and move on. I can click on an intermediate portion of the curve to give it another curve point. Click here, right click, drag to kind of scale it up a bit. I'll click on that. Now if I like this and I want to be able to get back to it at some point, I can save it. I'm going to first add a few other intermediate points here. So again, I can go ahead and save this. I'll name it base. And so if I like it, I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. Horn underscore base. I can now hit apply. I can go to the bottom here, smooth all. I can choose the move tool and do some further tweaking. And now I'm going to select the head, kind of bring that portion down to make it contour a bit better. And I'll hide the body because my frame per second will pick up when it has less geometry to have to constantly calculate. Alright, so that's fine. Let's choose the horn again. Just going to tweak it. So now what I want to do is use a copy of this. Now with this selected, I'm going to go to the bottom and clear. I can hide the original and you can see that there's no longer any geometry on this layer. So anyway, let's go ahead and choose the curves tool again, and let's look at some of our options. I'm going to go to default, and I have some dragon scales that I've created for other objects and things of that sort. I could choose one of these objects, and actually I sort of like that. All right, and I could click apply to whole curve and scale this up just a bit, and now all I have to do is just hit apply. I'm now going to drop the curves tool by accessing the quick panel, hitting the space bar, which essentially just gives you tools right at your fingertips instead of having to reach over to the tool panel. I'm probably going to discard the original and just keep this. I'll go ahead and hide the one I just made, take the original, go to the models palette, and I created one just for this particular scene. I named it Alien Objects, and I'd created some other horns as well, but I'm going to go ahead and just take this one, click the little move icon, and drag it straight into the models palette. And I have a decimation dialog. It's set at 50% by default. I'll hit OK. I can actually now delete that layer. Okay. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to speed up the playback in order to keep this video as brief as possible and provide some commentary along the way. What I'm doing here is kitbashing. I'm taking a model that I had already sculpted for something else, a dragon, and I'm going to reshape that using the move tool and the pose tool to experiment with a different version of this horn. Now I could start with freeform primitives and work that way, but if you already have something that you've created, there's no sense in starting from scratch if you don't have to. Anything to save time. And that's the whole premise behind kitbashing, is to not only save and store models, but to quickly access it later on. Now what I have here is I dragged and dropped a layer, that scale layer. I right clicked and chose extrude to give it a little bit more thickness, and when I drag and drop the layer into the splines palette, I get the dialog that allows me to dictate how much I want it to be replicated, how close together do I want these scales when I use the curves tool. Okay, and I could create different versions if I like, and just drag and drop them into the palette. As you see here, I have a few different versions. Now what I'm doing here is I clicked at the bottom of the tool options panel, apply to whole curve, and I'm adjusting the rotation to make it align a little bit better. And I'm liking this version a bit better than the previous one. Okay, and what I had to do is flip the rotation. For whatever reason, it was not oriented in the right direction. Now I could rotate around the curve, but I couldn't change the orientation of the scale, so I had to go back and do that on that particular layer, and then drag and drop, and you can see now it's oriented correctly. Now I clicked on this last little point to sharpen the end. With the curves tool selected, I'm going to go ahead and save this. That way if I need to go back and get to it to re-edit this, I can at some point. Alright, so now I hit the space bar to get out of that tool, and I like it. That saved me a lot of individual work, having to go in and make these ridges by hand, which I could have done, but it gives me a good starting point. And so what I want to do is make some spikes that come out of the jawline here. What I want to do is show how you can use your picker panel here. Instead of picking a color, you can use it for image references. Got some little lizards, and this is what I'm talking about, little spikes that come out along these ridge lines here. And I'll do the same thing with the eyes and have almost kind of a turret of sorts. So let's select some more. That's a good one. I can middle mouse click inside to move it around. Got some alligators here. And I can see thumbnails of the images that I chose. And if I hover over, I can see a larger thumbnail, and I'll click on that. And actually on the head, I want to try to do something a bit like this. Let's go ahead and use the freeze tool, and if you want to keep a hotkey for this, you can hit the end key, that's E and D, on your keyboard when you're hovering over tool, and now you can set a hotkey for it. If not, you just hit the escape key, go to brushes, and I'm going to choose a sharp brush alpha. Basically, you can just draw out, sketch out the pattern. And now I can use like the absolute brush. Do is use kind of a stamp tool to add a little bit of roughness. I'm now going to go to live clay, and if I want to sculpt while I am tessellating, adding tessellation to this, I can just use a regular brush alpha. In this case I don't, I just want to tessellate, and so therefore I want to keep my depth down to 0. Okay, I can hit the 4 key to see the wireframe. I'm going to use just a regular absolute type brush. Now when I paint over these areas, it smooths out a bit because I get more geometry to work with. So let's go ahead, and I could use creased clay. I could invert tool action or hold the control key. Okay, I'm going to crease along these edges here. Let's just use the move tool. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and go back to crease clay. And again, with the tool inverted, I'm going to bring the intensity down. Probably going to bring this smoothing up. Okay, and change the detail so that I can use a larger brush here without losing a lot of tessellation. I'm going to go back to a fall off brush. Hit the 4 key to turn wireframe off. So yeah, you'll definitely want to put crease clay in your presets. It's definitely something you're going to get a lot of use out of, a lot of mileage. Undo a time or two. I can drop that freeze selection by hitting Control D, just as I would in Photoshop. And we're going to pick up in the next video by continuing to finish up a little bit in the head area and then move on to the body. So stay tuned and thank you for watching.